Chapter 611, Lingling. It's been a month since Vaughn gave that name to the chaos that became her companion. Thanks to becoming the familiar creature of the goddess of battle, Lingling naturally gained a position as a pet among the legends. Lingling, the name sounds nice, don't you think? While Jean took a bite of the cacto and said, Lingling, who was on Vaughn's shoulder, suddenly showed his fangs. So, are you unsatisfied? Still, Jean and Lingling often engaged in playful squabbles, although they harbored no real animosity towards each other. Unsatisfied? I was just thinking that Sister Goddess of Battle has an unexpected side. Are you saying you didn't like it when Vaughn chose that name for me? You misunderstand again. I'm just surprised that Sister Goddess of Battle prefers cute names like that. I don't like you. Haha, is that so? I'm not particularly fond of you either. Wanna test me? Alright, you too. Nya. Naya. Vaughn and Shuri, who were listening, shook their heads. They had spent a month watching Jean and Lingling fight like this every time they met. Sorry, Sister Goddess of Battle. Okay, Vaughn. And Lingling. Brother Jean is right. Why do you always misinterpret Brother Jin's words? Why does Vaughn always take that bastard side? Because you're the one who's wrong. If Vaughn thinks so, I guess. Jean shrugged, and Lingling clung to Vaughn's cheek, showing a mischievous look. Brother Jean, you haven't been entirely right either. Lingling has just started living in a group, so there are many things she lacks. So even though he makes some mistakes, you should understand him. Naya. Lingling teased Jean by sticking out his tongue and lowering his lower eyelids. But Jean suppressed a laugh and stayed still. Every time Lingling did that, he received a light slap from Vaughn. Bang! Ow! Lingling briefly rubbed his forehead and then leaned back on Vaughn's cheek. Anyway, he's very fond of Sister Goddess of Battle. To think that guy was such a terrifying chaos. Jean thought it was very nice to see Vaughn and Lingling living together. So, since it seems you've rested enough, let's start training again. Vaughn and Jean sat face to face. After deciding to accept Lingling, they had been practicing the God of Battle fusion every day. Naturally, the fusion was stabilizing at a rapid pace unlike before. Now they could control harmony. The accidents where Jean would lose consciousness or Vaughn would be exhausted due to involuntary God of Battle fusion had completely disappeared. It was thanks to Lingling willingly becoming a link between them. Wow! As both their light hearts glowed, Vaughn's energy began to flow towards Jean. Adding Vaughn's power to the 10-star energy he had already achieved didn't have a dramatic, visible effect. According to Vaughn, Jean was still in a state where he couldn't properly control his power. Though the size of his power had reached 10 stars, Jean couldn't produce as much efficiency because he lacked the control over his power typical of a first-class superhuman. We need to know exactly how much power you can handle, Brother Jean. So focus. Yes, Sister Goddess of Battle. Vaughn's method was similar to Luna's mental eye training in the past. Just as awakening his mental eye, Jean was recognizing his own energy with his eyes closed. It was like swimming in the sea. It was a task to form the image of the sea of power in his mind and figure out its size. How far can it go and where is the end? As always, Jean completed the process faster than Vaughn expected. In the end, when Jean furrowed his brows, Vaughn smiled satisfactorily. Do you recognize it? Yes, as you said, Sister Goddess of Battle, I can clearly feel that I've reached the end. This is the limit. And beyond this, I can see the sea that seems to be a manifestation of power. In the middle, there is a layer of dark energy. The dark energy belonged to Lingling. He served as a conduit connecting Jean and Vaughn's powers and also acted as a sort of safety mechanism. Lingling's will prevented the powers of both individuals from mixing too much. Without it, Jean and Vaughn would have no choice but to run into issues like when fusion had manifested before. Now that we've come this far, controlling the fusion is no different from being completed. Right now, my vessel isn't enough. So even if I synchronize with you, Sister Goddess of Battle, I can't generate more power than the total amount of my strength. When Lingling took Jin's strength away, he felt his whole body fill with Vaughn's energy. At that moment, Jin's vessel was empty, But now it wasn't. There was no room for Vaughn's strength to intervene. However, the god of battle fusion remained transcendent for two reasons. Now, as long as you're with me, you'll never tire. In the fusion state, Vaughn's power was added every time Jin's energy ran out. This means he could always have maximum strength. If the mirror gave Jin divine mana during the Sword Emperor Castle War, Vaughn gave him infinite aura and lightning energy. But there was something else that really surprised him. Yes, besides that, the experience, senses, and perspective of Sister Goddess of Battle are being added. Jin, who had been speaking up to that point, suddenly shivered. It was because a shiver ran down his spine. Right now, Jin was accurately recognizing the maximum level of his strength, and he was recognizing the connection point of Lingling and Vaughn's strength beyond it. Thanks to the progress Jin had made in a month, the fusion showed a level of synchronization different from before. The result was the exchange of experiences, senses, and perspective of Vaughn. Everything Vaughn had accumulated through his experience as the goddess of battle was being filtered into Jin's brain, just as Bora's shared his experience through the memory transfer. Forging technique, Valeria's recording magic, and Soderet's recording device. If those were legacies, what Jin was experiencing now was a literal fusion. In other words, Jin was no different from being Vaughn. I guess this is what a blind person feels like when they open their eyes. Even the view of the training grounds, familiar as home, seemed completely different. Jin could discern which wall was weak, which floor was firm, how the wind flowed differently. He could recognize everything. It was a feeling like overseeing the world as a god, not as a human. Jin was excited by that feeling. Even the breaths of the other brothers, far from the training ground, were transmitted sharply. Does that mean Sister Goddess of Battle usually lives with this sensation? Current Jin couldn't maintain that state for long. Just remaining still overwhelmed him with information and sensations hard to bear. Dealing with it alone was enough to leave him breathless. Jin felt as if he had been reborn when he experienced the first god of battle fusion. That was nothing compared to now. The light tinting both their hearts dimmed. Before Jin exhausted too much, Vaughn canceled the fusion. Who? Jin could only show a bewildered expression, like a person who had just experienced an incredible miracle no one would believe. Additionally, he had to barely suppress an extreme feeling of disappointment. It seemed as if the world returned to monochrome as soon as the fusion lifted. The ground and wind of the training ground were no longer transmitted accurately and perfectly, and the brothers' breathing couldn't be felt. The feeling of becoming a god disappeared as if it were a dream. You seem quite shaken, Brother Jin. Not exactly. A moment ago, it felt like I reached the realm of the Genesis Knight effortlessly. It's a mistake to say there was no effort. Firstly, my senses were transmitted to that extent because you have that level of skills. Just as Jin felt Vaughn's feelings, Vaughn also keenly felt Jin's sensations. To that extent? Are you saying that wasn't all of it? To that, Vaughn gently smiled and replied, Brother Jin, I am the goddess of battle. Yes, Vaughn, the goddess of battle. Poor bastard. I think it's an honor. Nya, nya. At Lingling's reaction, Shuri shouted as if she were proud of Jin. But Jin couldn't get out of his astonishment. For a while, he had just realized that the Vaughn he had experienced wasn't everything. How strong is the goddess of battle? At the time of the first training in the past, the day Jin was able to share the fusion. Even then, Jin felt Vaughn like a huge wall, and it had always been that way since then. But now, stronger than ever, she seemed more distant than ever. You'll be able to enter the same realm as me. If you couldn't, you wouldn't even be able to accept my senses. Vaughn wasn't speaking empty words. Jin silently nodded his head. Jin didn't know when it would be, but if she said that, it meant he could definitely reach it. The senses may have gone, but the memories will remain, Brother Jin. Yes, Sister Goddess of Battle. Although it seemed like the world had returned to monochrome, Jin vividly remembered the sensations he experienced during the fusion. We'll proceed with training through those sensations. In other words, learn to fight like me. Additionally, try to extend the duration of the fusion at the same time. There was no training that could make one grow faster than that. Jean was convinced of it. If you want to increase the time, it would be better if you behaved well with me. Sure, Lingling. Ha! When Brother Jin's skills reach a certain level, from then on, you'll start training again with the Battle King brothers. The first opponent is the Brother 12th Battle King. 12th Battle King, Teto. The reason Vaughn chose Teto as Jin's first opponent was because he was the weakest of the Battle Kings. Vaughn was looking forward to seeing Jin defeat the Battle Kings one by one in order of battle prowess. Alright. Chapter 612. January 15, 1802. It had been more than a year and a half since Jin entered La Ferosa. Most of that time was dedicated to purifying the chaos, so it had only been about 2 months that Jin had been completely focused on training, since Vaughn accepted Lingling until now. However, in the last 2 months, Jin had experienced a period of astounding growth. Ha! Ha! Jin sheathed his sword, catching his breath. In front of him was the enormous sword mark he had just created. It was much deeper and more ominous than the one Timar had left in the training field. Then, as always, a strong sense of exhaustion set in, and the god of battle fusion dissipated. For 10 minutes, the current Jin and Vaughn were able to stably maintain the highest level of synchronization during that time. This meant that, during those 10 minutes, Jin became nearly invincible. How does it feel, Brother Jin? It's a pity. I still need your power to reach this state, Sister Goddess of Battle. You're talking nonsense. If you say that elsewhere, you'll be resented. I know. Where else could I talk about such hardships if not with my siblings? Pouring everything into becoming stronger, feeling the thrill of clear achievements every day. It was a happiness that Jin wouldn't trade for anything. Of course, the power available during the God of Battle fusion couldn't be attributed solely to Jin. However, what he had gained by training with Vaughn's shared experiences and senses was undoubtedly Jin's strength. I thought so, but as expected, the final ability of the Shadow Blade when I cut Lingling was at a level that could never be called complete. The experience of Vaughn. As the synchronization speed of the God of Battle fusion increased, Jin vividly absorbed everything Vaughn told him. Thanks to this, he was also able to glimpse the knowledge of the Shadow Blade and the Sword of Legends. In other words, Jin learned the Shadow Blade and the Sword of Legends without any dedicated training. Certainly, there is a considerable distance between understanding something intellectually and applying it in practice, so repetitive training is always necessary. However, training with a clear understanding of the essence promises overwhelming efficiency. If it's now, I can execute a Shadow Blade better than then. The Sword of Legends too. Unlike when Jin temporarily became stronger. Due to chaos demonization, there are no side effects in training through the God of Battle fusion. If I can keep growing like this, I might be able to return sooner than expected. Rosa had granted him 3 years. Now that half of that time had passed, Jin suddenly felt curious about how much the outside world had changed. What are you thinking about, Brother Jin? Boris, who had just entered the training field, sat next to Jin and asked, Brother Boris, I was just reminiscing about the outside for a moment. You seem worried. Jin shook his head. We don't get along well, but my mother, who is now the acting matriarch, is strong. She is someone who takes responsibility for what she says. There probably won't be any problems with the clan within 3 years. Jin trusted Rosa's obsession with surviving as a run candle. As long as Rosa was there, Jin believed there would be no problems with the Runcandle family even in his absence. If my mother wasn't there, coming to La Ferosa might have been a much harder decision. Looking back, the majesty of the Runcandle that he knew from his past life had considerably diminished. From Jin's perspective, Runcandle was an absolute fortress that would never collapse if a family member was missing. But not now. My father and my elder sister Luna are still absent, and after the war at Sword Emperor Castle, the family doesn't have the same solidarity as before. It's the reason why I brought Joshua, but that's not all. Kinselo hid the existence of Orgel, the demon beast king, and his powers, and Zippel is trying to transcend humanity by creating an orb and fleets of demon gods, and even the Empire has created demon men using Timar's body. Meanwhile, only Runcandle remains stagnant. The fact that clearly revealed this was the War of Sword Emperor Castle. Until that dreadful war finally concluded, Runcandle did not live up to its name. The fact that Rosa, who is clearly his enemy, supports the family is bitter. When Jean returns, he will have to eliminate her and reorganize the entire family. To regain the dignity that could match the old Runcandle, to restore the glorious appearance of the old Runcandle. Brother Fifth Battle King. Yes, sister goddess of battle. Call all the brothers to the hall of the gods of battle. Jean could sense what Vaughn would say. Is it time to start my duels with the brothers? Jean began to feel curious. How much difference was there now between him and the Battle King's brothers? Until a year and a half ago, all the Battle Kings of the legends had greater combat prowess than Jean. Even if it was a light sparring, even Teto, the 12th Battle King, almost overpowered Jean and overwhelmed him. All the other kings were stronger than Teto. Are we leaving already? No, you and I will go when we have rested enough. To the point where we can use the god of battle fusion again. Yes. A few hours later, as the two slowly made their way to the hall of the gods of battle, they saw the brothers who had already gathered waiting in line. When Vaughn ascended the throne in the hall, 76 legends, excluding her, all the surviving legends erased from history, admired her. Her light heart and that of Jean resonated with Vaughn's energy, generating a more intense light than usual. The radiance spreading from the light hearts filled the atmosphere, but the sight of them all gathered gave a somewhat empty and lonely feeling. Once, the entire main hall of the hall was filled with their light, like a vast plain. Now, from a distance, it would probably seem like just a handful of light. The reason I have gathered the brothers today is to commemorate. Lingling also read the atmosphere and behaved accordingly. Since our time stopped, the first to awaken us was Timar. However, more than Timar, the one who helped us enjoy even more time is none other than the brother Jean present here. When everyone nodded, Jean felt uncomfortable again. Jean believed that what he received from the brothers was much greater than what he gave. And brother Jean declared that he would return us to the human world. For now, there were only hints and no definitive means yet, but the legends had no doubt that Jean would surely do it. Jean himself believed in it. Our story will soon begin again. Therefore, I want to revive a tradition long forgotten. A tradition allowed only for the strongest among the strong. Oh, no way. The legends showed great excitement at Vaughn's words. The rebirth of history and uninterrupted tradition must be initiated, naturally, by Brother Jean. Do you all agree? Yes. When the legends responded energetically, Vaughn smiled and shouted, "Let's initiate the Great Battle Kings Tournament." As everyone roared, Jean had no choice but to discreetly ask Vaughn, "Sister Goddess of Battle, what is the Great Battle Kings Tournament?" It is the greatest festival of the legends. As its name suggests, it is a competition where warriors fight against the Battle Kings. The same goes for the Battle Kings. Battle? Isn't it a duel? Yes, the Great Battle Kings Tournament is the only combat where it is allowed to be harmed by a sword. The tribe of legends holds no enmity. Moreover, legends never fight with the purpose of killing each other. Whatever the form of dispute, the problem between brothers is resolved through barehanded fighting, and it is only possible to use swords to the extent that they do not cause mortal wounds. However, such prohibitions did not apply in the Great Battle Kings Tournament. Of course, brother killing was absolutely forbidden, but mortal wounds that could be treated were allowed. Upon Vaughn's explanation, Jean tilted his head, puzzled. Accidents can happen, right? If you fight without those restrictions, there is a possibility you might kill each other. Accidents are inevitable. Yes, unexpected accidents originally apply to everything in the world. It was indeed an answer fitting for someone who said, "Training is originally something that can lead to death." We have always sincerely cherished each other, Brother Jean, but even in the history of our tribe, there were many betrayals, murders, conspiracies, and schemes. They were just fewer than in other races. As always, Boras continued the explanation instead of Vaughn. In the era of the current Sister Vaughn, it was truly a time of peace and prosperity for us. That's why there was never a murder in the Great Battle Kings tournament, which was held before the destruction, but it was different before. There were times when factions split in fights, and they deliberately killed their opponents to achieve political ends. There were two reasons why the legends were excited about the revival of the Great Tournament. The first is that all the battles of Battle Kings that took place under the leadership of Goddess of Battle Vaughn were purely confrontations of strength. And the second, the revival of tradition meant the realization of hope. After resisting the gods and being destroyed, the legends have always lived like the dead in this dead world. There was no reason to continue traditions or festivals. The fact that Vaughn revived the Great Battle Kings tournament symbolized her faith in Jean and the history of La Ferosa, which would be liberated with him. Haha! This time I will also free myself from being the weakest among the Battle Kings. Keep dreaming, brother 12th Battle King. When does it start? Sister Goddess of Battle. Today? Tomorrow? The opening ceremony will begin immediately. At Vaughn's words, the eyes of the Battle Kings immediately changed. Their eyes shone with a bloodlust to kill Vaughn, who was right in front of them. This look is not just a duel close to a real battle. It's a look that really intends to kill Sister Vaughn. Is that possible? Bang! Vaughn, she, stomped her foot once, and suddenly the main hall of the Gods of Battle separated from the other buildings and began to rise into the sky. The main hall transformed into a stage for the Great Battle Kings tournament. Of course, it was a series of shocks for Jean. Then, when the main hall settled in the middle of the sky, Vaughn pointed at Jean. As you all know, the inaugural match of the Great Battle Kings tournament originally begins with me fighting all my brothers. We are all prepared. But this time, I will let Brother Jean, who has the god of battle fusion, take that role. As soon as those words were released, all the bloodlust of the Battle Kings, which had been directed towards Vaughn, began to turn towards Jean. Chapter 6:13. No, what is this all of a sudden? But more importantly, doesn't it bother anyone that the main hall is floating out of nowhere? There was no more time to think. Jean and Vaughn's light hearts resonated, activating the god of battle fusion. Right after, a spear flew before Jin's eyes. It was Teto's spear. Damn it, I'm late. No, are you waiting calmly? It was clear that he would have seen his blood. Or he suffered an internal injury while pushing him away. But now Jean couldn't see the blue blade of the spear flying towards his face so slowly, to the point where it took effort to overcome it. That's why Elder Sister Goddess of Battle said to rest enough to perform the God of Battle fusion before coming to the main hall. As soon as the initial battle began, everyone really showed their bloodlust. It's because it doesn't make sense to have a sloppy fighting spirit against Elder Sister Goddess of Battle. Jean didn't even have to unsheath his sword. Well, I wanted to use Elder Sister Goddess of Battle's power in actual combat at least once. Jean extended his fist towards the spear blade, almost at the speed of light. From Teto's perspective, he couldn't even perceive the moment Jean moved. Bang! The blow containing the aura of the 12th Battle King and a human's fist clashed. But the one pushed back was Teto. No, he wasn't just pushed back. Ugh! Teto, spitting blood, was sent flying away from the main hall. It was as if he was flung away like an arrow or fragments when a rock shatters. As soon as Teto flew out, all sorts of weapons appeared in Jin's clear vision. Swords, spears, bows, and even a mysterious net suitable for capturing giant monsters. The fact that everything had come so far with a sense of safety made Jean feel excitement unconsciously. It was really that powerful. It's a fact that Jean has long known that Vaughn's techniques are like the Great Sea. However, wielding that power directly was literally a different experience. A dash. With a single burst of energy, Jean was able to repel the brothers who pounced like hungry ghosts. The long saber of Baltarok, Lumira's spear, Palem's long saber, Rinpa's great saber, Bora's fists and hand cannon, Dalper's twin swords, Belaz's great saber, Garmin's great saber, Baba's long saber, Kao's bow, Nada's flying kick, Teto's spear rejoining the fray, and countless weapons of the ordinary warriors. All those attacks couldn't penetrate the energy unleashed by Jean. On the other hand, Jean was able to attack successfully so easily. The ordinary warriors were swept away like fallen leaves by the strong wind, and the battle kings raised their energies. The whole sky trembled as if it was about to collapse under their collective pressure, to the point that the surging energy created a storm like a tidal wave in an instant, and in the distorted space, screams resonated like cracks. In an instant, a scene reminiscent of the apocalypse unfolded. Some ordinary warriors couldn't withstand the storm and collapsed. To prevent further damage to the fallen, Jean sent his energy towards them, forming protective shields around them. Naturally, as if it was his own power. It seemed he could afford to protect all the ordinary warriors that way. Ha ha ha! A bitter laugh escaped him. This was the power of the goddess of battle of the tribe of legends. Ka! The first battle king to break through Jin's lightning was Nada. Ko shot an arrow to clear the path and, within that opening, Nada roared and jumped. It was then that Jean unsheathed Sigmund. The sword was imbued with lightning energy unparalleled compared to any other moment. And when the sword left its sheath, Jean had a firm conviction. If he wanted to, he could strike down Nada in one blow. Jean didn't articulate those thoughts, but Nada instinctively understood. If you had been the true elder sister goddess of battle, she wouldn't have hesitated. Elder brother Jean. Swoosh! Pzzz. Lightning energy swirled and gathered in Nada's fist. An illusion? No, it's a variable. Created by elder sister Nada. The moment Jean was sure he had to strike wherever. Even if that meant Nada wouldn't die and somehow managed to take another step to land a punch. She was a battle king of legends. Though she didn't reach the level of god of battle, she wasn't someone who would fall to a simple sword. Even the true Vaughn had to be sincere to kill her. Especially in a situation like this where the 12 battle kings and all the ordinary warriors attacked at once. Nada's fist passed by Jin's ear. He momentarily lost his balance due to the shockwave, but it wasn't enough to pose a problem when counterattacking. Jean cut her fists with his sword's hilt and unleashed a sweeping blow. Just as Nada's blood was about to evaporate into lightning energy, Belaz's great sword came in to deliver the second strike. He dodged and stabbed, shot sword energy while parrying Ko's lightning arrows, twisted the attack trajectory of Palem and Lamora, pushed back Baltarok, knocked down Dalper and Garmund, deflected Rinpa and struck Bora's chin, adjusting the force, considering Bora's tight schedule, and he struck down Teto's spear. Took him 3 seconds to do all this. Jean hadn't yet received any effective blow, and in the midst of the chaos, tried to counterattack as his formation crumbled. But one remained. The 9th battle king Baba, the direct descendant of the ancient god of battle Nana. His blue sword rushed through the chaotic battlefield. This is dangerous. A chill ran down Jin's spine. In the midst of the confusion, a sense of danger, seemingly impossible in the state of god of battle fusion, abruptly awakened his senses. The perfect solution to overcome this danger was to counterattack precisely. His eyes and senses made him capable of wielding the sword without hesitation even in the midst of such a desperate situation. However, receiving this blow would kill or severely injure Baba. Had it not been for Nada's earlier example, Jean might have hesitated again. After all, they weren't enemies but rather siblings engaged in a sparring match. Reacting clumsily out of fear of hurting Sister Baba is more of an insult to her. As if on cue, Jin's lightning energy scattered in all directions, coalescing around Sigmund before anyone could blink. Before the edges of their swords met, there was a brief moment where all of Jin's energy focused. Crackle! Baba's sword distorted. His arm, wielding the sword, twisted, but Jean didn't stop even after seeing it. An expansive wave that seemed to destroy the entire hall spread instantly. Nearby battle kings were thrown in random directions, and Jean didn't retract the released energy. Instead, he amplified it, fueled by the intent to annihilate all the battle kings. The explosion whitened the entire surroundings, and due to the immense commotion, Jean couldn't immediately comprehend the situation even with the battle god's senses. And what Jean regretted didn't come to pass. Through that enormous explosion, what appeared next was Baba's sword descending like a lightning once again. a sword threatening him, tearing through the white storm of the shockwave. It wasn't as menacing as the first time. Jean effortlessly blocked Baba's sword and slammed him to the ground, not giving him a chance to rise. He lunged at him like a beast, aiming the sword at his throat. Kao's arrow, flying just before the thrust, diverted Sigmund. Once again, the linked attacks of the Battle Kings showed an even more formidable momentum. Furthermore, some ordinary warriors cleverly followed the path opened by the Battle Kings and entered the fray. At that moment, Jean could only show a look of joy once more. Even after using the God of Battle fusion, facing such an exhausting situation was possible, revealing that his opponents were truly his powerful and persistent siblings. Jean felt proud of the greatest fighting race in history. Cover me, brother 10th Battle King. Charge. Don't face him one-on-one. Brother 9th Battle King, you need time to recover. The longer the fight lasted, the more scratches formed on Jin's body one by one. Other members of the Legends had broken bones and crushed muscles in most cases, but their momentum did not diminish at all. Rather, it became fiercer. It would have been impossible if they were alone, but personal injuries were no issue for the Legends, who were immersed in coordinated attacks. They moved as one regardless of whether they were Battle Kings or ordinary warriors. There was no difference in battle skill level, and anyone could become the center of the attack whenever the opportunity arose. Jean rushed among them without hesitation and broke the formation. However, as much as he knocked them down, the Legends showed no signs of collapsing. Vaughn watched them with satisfaction from above, riding on Lingling, who had transformed her body. Ha! Watching him fight well annoys me. He's strong, but with Vaughn's added power, it's like that guy sprouted wings. Lingling, why do you act as if you dislike Brother Jean when you don't actually hate him? Why do you ask when you're reading my mind, Vaughn? That's right. More importantly, do you really think it's okay to give it all to him, Vaughn? Vaughn smiled. I'm willing to give it all to Brother Jean and the rest of my siblings anytime. HPMH. How can you say that sincerely, Vaughn? And you, too, Lingling. You're not a sibling, but a part of me, no. Because we've become a family. Lingling didn't reply, but she flapped her wings shyly. Whoa. Vaughn breathed out as if exhausted. The time for the God of Battle fusion to end had come. The 10 minutes, which was the previous maximum, had been extended, so the current God of Battle fusion was causing even greater fatigue. The moment the battle ended, Jean breathed heavily and held his sword against Baba's neck, while the other Battle Kings aimed their weapons at him. At first, Jean dominated them, but gradually the synchronization speed of the God of Battle fusion decreased, and in the end, they pushed him back. The Legends stopped all their attacks as soon as the God of Battle fusion ended. Although it was a short battle, less than 10 minutes, Jean and the Legends showed signs of exhaustion like people who had been on the battlefield for days. Phew, that was intense. Brother Jean, the battle would have ended in an instant if not for Sister Vaughn's power. That's obvious. Anyway, it's been a pleasant fight. As always when Jean achieves an achievement, the Legends suddenly open, their mouths in the air of the main hall. Then, like young beasts trying to eat the falling snow, they gulp the air. It was a bit embarrassing, but laughter erupted at the innocent appearance of their siblings. Excellent. With this, let's conclude the opening match of the Great Battle Kings Tournament. Chapter 614. It was like a dreamlike battle. The sensation and experience of the God of Battle that Jean had in the initial battle lingered in his mind, stimulating his thoughts even days afterward. It was as if a warrior had been exposed to powerful inspiration just before creating a masterpiece. Jean constantly replayed the initial combat in his mind, his eyes remaining distant. I was just blocking Brother Kao's arrows. Instead of blocking, if I had countered and redirected them as they were, it would have been easier to deal with the follow-up attacks from the brothers. And the members of the tribe of Legends clicked their tongues worriedly after seeing Jean like this. Since the initial battle, Brother Jean has become strange. It seems he has taken a liking to it. Is it because he regrets that the power of Sister Goddess of Battle is not truly his? Brother Jean is not like that. I think he is just organizing the enlightenment he gained from that day's battle. Anyway, now that everyone has been treated, the Great Battle Kings tournament will begin today. That's why I'm worried if Brother Jean will properly face Brother 12th Battle King. As Vaughn said, the first battle after the inaugural fight was between Jean and Teto. Unlike Jean, Teto continued to train hard every day as soon as Bora's treatment ended. Jean can no longer use the God of Battle fusion until the Great Battle Kings tournament is over. He must compete with his brothers solely with his own strength. Ordinary warriors gathered to chat or train together, but the Battle Kings did not even exchange glances, except for Bora's. It was as if the once close brothers were no longer so. Regardless of who the opponent was, an intense mental battle was inevitable, leading to a fierce confrontation with willpower and fighting spirit. Even if one became the final winner, apart from the God of Battle, all members of the Legends were simply brothers. At least it had always been this way in Vaughn's era. However, the Battle Kings adopted such a severe stance due to their inherent pride and self-esteem. They believed that giving it their all was the only considerate act toward their opponents. Above all, the final winner of the Great Battle Kings tournament means being the closest to the God of Battle. The existence of the God of Battle is the ultimate goal of the Legends. Becoming the closest to the God of Battle is the greatest honor a legend can enjoy. Jean also wanted to be the protagonist of that glory. Karurik dash. PZZZ. Suddenly, a lightning bolt struck from above the main hall. It signaled that the match was about to begin. Challenging the falling lightning, the Legends on the ground rushed toward the main hall, using ropes, creating wind blades to fly, or stepping on the backs of climbing brothers and jumping. It was a strange spectacle, but amid the challenge to the lightning, there was a sublime atmosphere surrounding the Legends ascending to the main hall. Vaughn awaited them in the center of the main hall. Brother 12th Battle King and Brother Jean stepped forward. It was then that Jean and Teto looked each other in the eyes for the first time. Unlike his usual playful behavior, Teto was full of fighting spirit, while Jean maintained his composure. The rules are simple. Make the opponent unable to fight or throw him out of the main hall to achieve victory. Also, killing is strictly prohibited, but there are no restrictions on the use of any kind of sword techniques. All the members of the tribe of Legends waiting, including the God of Battle, were security personnel, so even if you used sword techniques at will, you couldn't easily kill the opponent. However, accidents were inevitable. When the lightning subsided, a moment of silence enveloped the surroundings. The fight began with Vaughn turning around as a signal. Swak dash. Jean extended his sword first. The energy of the sword and the lightning bolts exploded in all directions and, meanwhile, Teto thrust his spear. From the first clash, both clearly aimed for lethal blows. Jean aimed at the chest, and Teto at the neck, and sparks flew from both areas without leaving a trace. As the drops of blood splattered, they evaporated without a trace in the lightning. The distance of about 100 steps narrowed and widened repeatedly, and images of the two were left everywhere. It was incomparable to when they faced each other to check Jin's skills before purifying the chaos. The spectators were also very nervous. It was so intense that it wouldn't be strange for an accident to happen at any moment. This can't be all you have, right? Fight properly, Brother Jean. Teto shouted and repelled Jean with a burst of energy. Jean, who had been pushed back, became unstable due to consecutive attacks, and Teto relentlessly pressed on that opening. However, something was amiss. Even with Jean losing his center of gravity, Teto could only inflict superficial wounds on him. Of course, although they were small wounds, they accumulated quickly, and the impacts were destined to build up. Still, for some reason, Teto acted cautiously, feeling uneasy. This doesn't feel right. Meanwhile, Jean kept recalling the initial battle, trying to utilize that sensation to the fullest in his current state without the use of the God of Battle fusion. Ah! When Jean widened his eyes and exclaimed, Teto suddenly stopped attacking. Sorry, Brother 12th Battle King. I couldn't concentrate because I was thinking. It wasn't a lie, but he spoke intentionally with a sneer to provoke. Teto narrowed his eyes and responded. Throwing out such shallow provocations suddenly ruins the mood, Brother Jean. Well then, I apologize. It was just a test by provocation. Jean recalled part of the sensation from that moment. Then, he felt confident he could defeat Teto in an instant. Although he might be the weakest among the Battle Kings, he was still a Battle King of the tribe of legends. Zzzzzzz. The swirling lightning gathered in Sigmund. At that moment, not only Teto but also those watching could see what kind of sword Jean would execute. As a gesture of apology, I'll take your opinion into account, Brother 12th Battle King. 10 stars. Jin's aura had already reached that level. However, having a strength of 10 stars wasn't enough. What mattered was how transcendently and efficiently one could handle that power. I hope this sword remains as a glorious memory for you, Brother 12th Battle King. Sword of the God of Battle, 10th Sword Technique, Reign of the King of Legends. Unleashed except for Vaughn. The brothers had never seen Jean using the Reign of the King of Legends. Even if they had seen it, the members of the Tribe of Legends probably wouldn't have been particularly excited. The sword of the Reign of the King of Legends that Jean had displayed in the meantime couldn't even be compared to Vaughn's original version and was fundamentally incomplete. However, the current sword of the Reign of the King of Legends was different. Although its power was still far below the original, its form and execution were close to perfection. This was achieved by Jin's body, using Vaughn's senses to execute it. Brother Jean, as expected, did you learn the God of Battle's ultimate techniques? The 9th Battle King, Baba, who was watching, unconsciously smiled with a bitter expression. Teto, who was facing the ultimate technique, couldn't help but be stunned. The floor of the main hall was crushed, and the lightning erupted like lava. Jin's eyes shone with the blue of the lightning, and the light heart vibrated as if it would explode at any moment, scattering brilliance. The fierce lightning caused a storm, quickly forming Jin's domain. In response, Teto also executed his Battle King's spear. Within Jin's domain, Teto's light heart swayed, clearly forming a prominent point. The energies emanating from the two hearts collided, creating a blue flame. Compared to the real thing, it's nothing. The result was decided the moment Teto shouted this. If it really were nothing, he wouldn't have hastily executed the Battle King techniques. However, although Jean was confident in his victory, he didn't stop the advance of his sword. As he had experienced in the initial battle, the Battle Kings were beings capable of creating variables at any moment, even in absolutely unfavorable situations. They were opponents who could sharpen the sword of the Reign of the King of Legends with all their might. Following the 3rd sword movement of the God of Battle Condemnation, the newly learned 7th sword movement Dragonslayer and the 9th sword movement Annihilation targeted Teto. An ordinary warrior wouldn't be able to withstand even one of them. In contrast, the ordinary warriors were enduring the storm of the sword of the Reign of the King of Legends without Vaughn's help and the Battle Kings. Ka-ha! Teto's spear instantly deflected Jin's lightning energy. If Jean hadn't extended his sword of the Reign of the King of Legends, Teto's spear would have had enough power to put Jean in a crisis. You shouldn't have given me time to think, Brother 12th Battle King. The second form of the ultimate technique, the sword of the Reign of the King of Legends, the war wasn't executed. If the intention wasn't to deliberately take Teto's life, it was already enough to end the fight. It was the 9th sword movement, Annihilation, that defeated Teto. Massive blue energy spread around Jean like giant wings, generating a storm of lightning that struck Teto. Teto couldn't escape. Dodge, block, endure. That was all Teto could do. Little by little, Teto retreated, and the blade of Annihilation slashed at him more ferociously, with power amplified to the limit through the sword of the Reign of the King of Legends. Ha! Ha! When Annihilation finally ceased, Teto appeared lifeless, covered in blood, and Jean didn't stop there. He shot the punch of condemnation one last time. As Teto lost consciousness, he tried to dodge condemnation until the last moment. It was inevitable that Teto would fall out of the hall, unable to withstand the impact. Jean suppressed the rising energy, took a deep breath, and other brothers immediately rushed toward the falling Teto. At the end of the battle, it was a tradition of the great tournament to rescue the loser in any way possible. Zaz! Lamora grabbed Teto, and the other brothers pulled them back to the main hall. I told you to wake up, Brother 12th Battle King. It was because you fought with such a fragile mind that you were so severely wounded. Try again next time, Brother Jean. Originally, Brother 12th Battle King had to win to be normal. The battle is over. The winner is Brother Jean. After Vaughn solemnly announced the result, Jean didn't hear the usual thunderous cheers from the tribe of legends. Instead, what greeted him was the fierce gaze of the Battle Kings, as if they were ready to devour him immediately. Even in the midst of this, there were Battle Kings who secretly swallowed air and ate up Jin's achievement. This is the first and last easy victory. Jean had no choice but to swallow dryly while receiving the murderous glares of his brothers with a smile. Chapter 6:15. Even after unleashing the sword of the reign of the King of Legends, Jean was not immediately consumed as he had been before. This was a result of Jin's growth, gained through the enlightenment he achieved by crossing life and death multiple times in the war at the Sword Emperor Castle, and the sense of Vaughn he obtained through the fusion of battle gods. Jean defeated the 12th Battle King of Legends in an instant, without even using the newly learned Ultimate Shadow Sword technique. However, Jean was not satisfied at all. Having experienced the pinnacle of martial arts, he found it difficult to feel a great sense of achievement even after accomplishing something remarkable. Even after the first battle of the Great Battle Kings tournament ended, Jean still stared blankly, as if his mind was elsewhere. The only moments when his gaze sharpened were when the other Battle Kings matches began. Only then did he focus his mind to analyze. However, once the matches ended, Jean wandered aimlessly around La Ferosa like a ghost with vacant eyes. I'm worried that elder brother Jean will really lose his mind at this rate. Pop! Tantel uncorked a bottle of Jewel liquor and sat down next to Jean. Jean was gazing at the sky from the spire near the Hall of Battle Gods. Elder brother Tantel, are you here? Didn't you even realize I had come? What did you just say? Oh, never mind. What's bothering you? Explain it to me. It was a dilemma. Also, a dilemma of abundance. Due to experiencing the sensations of the god of battle, Jean felt that his martial prowess was mediocre. Even though I'm full, it seems I've overdone it. Upon hearing the circumstances, Tantel shook his head. If you think about your age, elder brother Jean, there's a big difference between us. However, just moments ago you defeated the 12th Battle King. Although elder brother 12th Battle King is the weakest of all, he is clearly a Battle King. The fact that Jean defeated Teto meant he had the qualifications to become a Battle King. I know. Jean knew this better than anyone. However, this training was his last chance before the inevitable large-scale war between the major factions. The stronger Jean became, the more anxious he felt. He wondered if he could protect his companions and his clan from the enemies when he returned. As Tantel mentioned, despite the considerable achievements and power he had gained compared to his age, the enemies were undoubtedly formidable. If Jean could end his brothers immediately in the human world, he could change the situation in an instant. However, it was unknown when that would happen. Be careful if you know elder brother Jean. Read the atmosphere a little. Atmosphere? Don't you feel jealousy? Are my brothers jealous of me? Ha! Why wouldn't they be? Jean had received all kinds of privileges in La Ferosa. Before becoming a brother, he already mastered the Sword of Legends and even received the blood transfusion of the God of Battle. Of course, since you became our brother, all the achievements you've made are our pride. But the other brothers are also living beings. Elder brother Teto trained for over 100 years before becoming a Battle King, and many brothers worked even harder than that and never became Battle Kings. It was a problem Jean hadn't considered. After being recognized as a brother, Jean had always been cherished by the legends. His brothers always tried to help him, wanted to be the first to share in his achievements, and felt proud of themselves when they were summoned by the Black Light Call, as if it was the blessing of life. Jean found it hard to imagine that those brothers were now jealous. I feel sorry for them. Well, you don't have to feel sorry for everyone. Some brothers not only don't feel jealous but also find it impressive. I'm one of them. As Tantel handed him the jewel liquor, Jean felt warmth in his stomach. This Great Battle Kings tournament is the only opportunity for everyone to express their resentment and jealousy. Even though the tournament follows the no-kill rule, all participating brothers are putting their lives and hearts into it. As Jean listened to Tantel, his face warmed, and his chest tightened. It was embarrassing. So you should pull yourself together and fight more seriously. When the Great Battle Kings tournament ends, regardless of the results and the process, the brothers will surely appreciate you as before. But never forget that the brothers are also living beings. If there remains any minimum resentment, it will end up festering. Jean looked into Tantel's eyes. Suddenly, Jean recalled the image of the Battle Kings who seemed to harbor a murderous intent towards him after his battle with Teto. Thank you, elder brother Tantel. Thanks to you, my mind is clearer. By the way, what's that paper? Oh, it's nothing. Nothing. Jean grabbed Tantel's wrist as he hurriedly tried to hide the paper. The paper contained the following. 7th Duel of the Great Battle Kings Tournament 8th Battle King. Elder Brother Garmund versus Successor of the Storm, Elder Brother Jean. Odds 1.5. 7. Who will be the winner? Betting? Well, it's a simple pastime. You only bet with jewel liquor. It's a secret we even keep from Sister Goddess of Battle. Come to think of it, Jean had recently seen Tantel carrying several bottles of jewel liquor. Tantel had bet on Jean during the first match. You don't truly believe that the Goddess of Battle sister is completely ignoring it. Anyway, you must win, Brother Jean. I've bet all my jewel liquor. If you win this time, I won't have to worry about alcohol for the rest of my life. As Tantel vanished as if fleeing, Jean let out a chuckle. The next day, the main hall floating in the sky was once again enveloped in blue lightning. I will commence the 7th duel of the Grand Tournament. Jean versus Garmund. As the two faced off, the lightning ceased. Jean evaluated Garmund's skill to be around the mid-range level among the Battle Kings. He might be below that level, but nonetheless, he's undoubtedly different from Brother Teto. Originally, Jean couldn't win against him. However, Garmund's physical condition wasn't perfect. Unlike Jean, who had rested since the battle with Teto, Garmund had engaged in an intense battle with ordinary warriors who had challenged him in a group this morning. He wasn't severely injured, but he seemed somewhat fatigued. Have you underestimated me, Brother Garmund? Think what you want. The outcome is already decided. Garmund showed none of his usual nonchalance. Only a determined will to crush his opponent was evident. As Vaughn retreated, Garmund's great sword descended within inches of Jin's nose. When he blocked it, he felt the impact as if his entire body were to be crushed by the blade. Unconsciously, Jin used the aura to dissipate the impact outward, and Garmund had no choice but to furrow his brows. It's that sense, a sense of God of battle. It was difficult for the former Jin to so easily dissipate. The shock that should have caused internal injuries. The training to awaken Vaughn's sense, which had begun in earnest, was starting to bear fruit. Not only that, but the memory of blocking Garmund's sword in the God of Battle fusion state during the initial fight also vividly came to his mind. Brother Garmund is slow, of course in a relative sense. He possessed the brute strength to wield a great saber like a dagger, easily surpassing the weight of several strong men, and left aftershocks every time he took a step forward, but he could never be said to be agile compared to other battle kings. Instead, Garmund compensated for his lack of speed in battles against opponents of similar level with destructive power. His method consisted of filling the gaps created by the absence of speed with explosive blows and aura. If I can expose that weakness, I can gain an advantage over Brother Garmund. The exposure had already ended in the first exchange. It was a matter of dispersing the shock transmitted to the body outward. Jin executed it immediately, and Garmund had no choice but to hastily respond. It was an unexpected turn of events from the beginning of the battle. Ha! Having tasted the senses of the Goddess of Battle sister, does that mean he has already developed his physical abilities to this extent? I shouldn't have accepted the challenge from ordinary warriors in the morning. Of course, Garmund didn't openly show his confusion or panic. He skillfully sidestepped Jin, who had exposed his weakness, and devised a new tactic. I'll execute my techniques. It will be over in one go. Garmand expected Jin to unleash the sword of the reign of the King of Legends. Although dispersing the blows worked well, Jin couldn't perform anything beyond that. Therefore, a decisive blow was needed, so a sword with such destructive power had to be unleashed. Sword of the reign of the King of Legends, Hellfire, or the ultimate Shadow Sword technique. As far as Garmand knew, those three were Jin's strongest swords. Hellfire can't wield its power without Tess, and Brother Jin wants to keep the ultimate Shadow Sword technique as a trump card. All that's left is the sword of the reign of the King of Legends. He must be confident. He firsthand experienced how Brother Teto couldn't even use his moves correctly and was defeated. Garmand believed that he could attack Jin's current sword of the reign of the King of Legends head-on and break it. No, it wasn't a belief, it was a certainty. He was sure that his Battle King technique surpassed the power of Jin's sword of the reign of the King of Legends. As expected, lightning energy began to gather in Jin's light heart. Now, when Brother Jin executes the sword of the reign of the King of Legends, I must break it with the Battle King technique at once and provoke a backlash. Garmand seized the opportunity like that. Garmand had been looking for that opportunity. But even though the exchange lasted for over 30 minutes, the aura gathered in Jin's light heart showed no signs of transforming into overwhelming force. Ho-ho! Did you know my thoughts from the beginning? Garmand realized too late, and Jin smiled. There wouldn't be brothers who couldn't read Brother Garmand's thoughts. You always wear them on your face, brother. Well then, there's nothing I can do. I'll make the first move from my side. Even if his intentions were red, it wasn't a problem. Garmand's attempt to lead the counterattack was only a consideration to minimize Jin's injuries. Swoosh dash! Garmand's energy began to gather at a point. Even at a glance, the great sword was surrounded by enough energy to defeat Jin with a single sword stroke. Anyway, you can't handle this sword. But unfortunately, there was something else Garmand couldn't calculate. Garmand was about to unleash his move, but he didn't realize that Jin, who had increased his speed even further, had darted into his blind spot. He didn't expect Jin's physical skills and quick footwork, which had compensated for his destructive power, to be even faster there. He's been able to move even faster than before? Penetrating my energy. He felt the tip of Sigmund's sword on his neck. It's over, Brother Garmand. Garmand shrugged and dissipated the accumulated energy in his great sword. Darn it, I didn't expect to lose so anticlimactically. Another Battle King loses to that unpleasant guy? Weren't you so weak when you pressed me? Lingling intervened, and Vaughn stopped the battle, announcing Jin's victory quietly. If Brother Garmand had thought a little more, I would have undoubtedly lost. Well, I didn't expect to win like this again after what happened with Brother Teto. At the moment, Jin thought up to that point. A member of the tribe of legends who was watching shouted, "Darn it! Everyone is playing. 12th Battle King and 8th Battle King. Can you still say you're the Battle Kings of the Grand Tribe of Legends?" Chapter 616, The Legend That Roared was the 10th Battle King, Ko. Brother Ko? Everyone turned to look at Ko. Seeing how enraged he was, Ko's clenched fists trembled. "Be Brother 10th Battle King, what's wrong? Did you bet on Brother Garmand?" Ko did not respond to the words of several ordinary warriors who did not read the atmosphere well. Tantel, who had a good sense of humor, covered their mouths and coughed. Instantly, a heavy silence filled the air. Jin had never seen any of his brothers express so much anger since he arrived in La Ferosa. "It seems you are not satisfied with me, 10th Battle King." Garmand narrowed his eyes and looked at Ko. His pupils contained a much deeper and darker fighting spirit than he had shown while facing Jin just moments ago. "Yes. Now you show a look ready for combat in earnest. Don't beat around the bush and say it plainly. You should have shown that look when you were fighting Brother Jin, not against me. What? If you're going to treat Brother Jin like a child, why not change his diapers too? Your words are harsh. 10th Battle King. You're crossing the line. You crossed the line first, 8th Battle King. Do you think the other brothers won't notice that you just deliberately lost to Brother Jin? Deliberately losing? The accumulated fatigue from the morning battle was greater than I thought. And again, it just means Brother Jean was stronger than expected. Such things are usually called unspoken intentions. 8th Battle King, you secretly hoped for Brother Jean to win. So, even during the fight, you deliberately did not use your moves correctly. I've already said, it's not like that, but you keep talking nonsense. If it really isn't true then, KO stepped toward Garmund. Put the honor of the goddess of battle and all the brothers at stake. Did you fight with all your heart, 8th Battle King? If you say yes, then I will cut off my right arm. Looking at KO's determined face right in front of him, Garmund involuntarily took a step back. It wasn't because he felt overwhelmed by KO's spirit, nor because he feared confrontation. It was because there was something stabbing at him. Indeed, every word from KO hit home with Garmund. Why can't you answer, 8th Battle King? Well, actually no, since you would cut off your right arm, 10th Battle King. It's shameful that you, the 12th Battle King, and I are the same Battle Kings. It's true that I fought properly and lost. Do I have to endure this criticism like this? 10th Battle King. When Teto spoke with a seemingly unfair voice, and Lumora roughly wrapped her arm around his neck. Shut up, 12th Battle King. It's an important matter. No, the way 10th Battle King is speaking doesn't seem pleasant at all. Don't stop me. Why is he yelling at me if I haven't done anything wrong? Am I really so weak that I seem like a coward? Do you want to fight Brother KO? Will you fight him, 12th Battle King? Will you? Listen to this, sister. And anyway, since you were also defeated by Brother Jean, it's true that it hurt the pride of the Battle Kings. Teto seemed to be struggling against Lumora's strength. KO doesn't even seem to care about Teto. Are you going to endure such a humiliating situation and still refuse to answer? 8th Battle King. 10th Battle King, it seems you're confusing with the goddess of battle. Why should I follow your words? 10th Battle King. In the next moment, all members of the Tribe of Legends had no choice but to be frightened. Bang dash. Suddenly, KO struck Garmund's jaw with his fist. It was such a powerful blow that a shockwave spread throughout the main hall. Oh, that must really hurt. Looks like his jaw broke. Garmund, swaying as if he were about to collapse, blinked. KO, you bastard. Then, as Garmund tried to counterattack. Enough. Vaughn spoke for the first time. And Vaughn looked at everyone for a while from atop Lingling and said nothing more. The 7th match has ended. The winner is Brother Jean. The next match will be held after an hour of rest. After announcing the results of the match in a calm voice, she disappeared. There is no hierarchy among all the legends, except the goddess of battle. To put it bluntly, Jean, the successor of the goddess of battle and heir of Sigmund, had a nominal position only surpassed by Vaughn, but the real recognition was another matter. That's why an event like this occurred. Certainly, Jean had risen to the ranks of the strong even among the legends, and had become the heir of the Shadow Blade and the successor of the goddess of battle. But his strength was still not recognized by everyone. Being recognized as a brother and being recognized as a battle king or successor were clearly different things. The sister goddess of battle left without intervening in the fight. Does this mean that the battle kings should not stop fighting? It's the first time something like this has happened since the battle with the gods. It almost never happened before the war. It's unsettling. By the way, is it true that the 12th Battle King and the 8th Battle King lost intentionally? Is that why they're fighting? What does it matter if Brother Jean is doing well? Honestly, it seems like the 10th Battle King holds some resentment. Brother Jean is our only hope anyway. Exactly. Without Brother Jean, we can't get out. Plus, Brother Jean has never believed in the favor of Sister Goddess of Battle, and he turned wild like lightning, right? He has always proved his worth. That's why he became our brother. That's true, but considering the significance of the Great War, I can understand the feelings of the 10th Battle King. Honestly, it hasn't been long since Brother Jean became our brother. And Brother Jean achieved everything that the Battle Kings desired so much in a short period of time. Although he was chosen by the Sister Goddess of Battle. In any other era, all this would have been nearly impossible. Above all, the 10th Battle King worked harder than anyone to become the successor of the sister goddess of battle before our destruction. No one can deny that. Ordinary warriors whispered and exchanged opinions. They had no idea why Vaughn had left, so they did not intervene hastily in the fight. For Jean it was equally confusing. The brothers he knew never showed their fangs to each other. Moreover, from the moment he was recognized as a brother, Jean had never experienced discrimination or prejudice, always receiving unconditional support. This was the nature and characteristic of the race called Tribe of Legends. Sometimes, Jean thought there was no group with a more ideal society than the Legends. An absolute leader, equality, trust, and people who never betrayed each other. However, as Tantel had said before, the Legends were also living beings. We don't always care for each other with the same sincerity. As now, Brother Jean. Even in the history of the Legends there were many betrayals, murders, conspiracies, and schemes. Just fewer than in other races. The era of the current goddess of battle, Sister Vaughn, was truly an era of peace and prosperity for us. That's why there was never a murder in the Great Battle Kings tournament, which was held before the destruction, but it wasn't like that before. There were factional fights, and some deliberately killed others for political ends. Jean suddenly remembered what Boris had said. The peaceful era of Sister Goddess of Battle. In the end, she defied the gods and faced destruction. Perhaps the ideal aspect of the brothers that Jean had witnessed so far was possible, because La Ferosa was a dead world. Time for the Legends stood still. When Timar found La Ferosa, as the first heir, even when Jean arrived 1,000 years later, La Ferosa was a society without a future. All the members of the Legends, who had only received visits from 2 people for a long time, could do was give everything they had to the heir. So, they no longer needed to compete among themselves. There was no need to fight for the succession of the god of battle, and there was no reason to consecrate themselves. But now that Jean had declared that he would return them to the human world, their time had regained meaning. They had a reason to live, desires revived, and the spark of dreams ignited. In other words, it wasn't just a ghost who wanted to become a successor, but now it was possible to face tomorrow as a living being. That's why some brothers were convinced that this fight among the Battle Kings had to be brutally fair. Regardless of the outcome, Jean would inevitably be the heir of the Shadow Blade, but they believed that the successor of the God of Battle could change. To remove the rust and moss attached to the stagnant history of the Tribe of Legends, inevitably, there had to be struggles and battles. The Great Battle Kings tournament was the final test and purification stage that Vaughn and all the other members of the tribe gave to Jean. For history to flow again, everything had to be laid bare. To achieve that, Jean came to the conclusion of what he had to do. 10th Battle King. Jean looked at Ko with Garmund in the background. If you don't like the actions of the 8th Battle King, when it's your turn, you can trample me with all your might. That's what I plan to do, Brother Jean. And no matter how sincere the 8th Battle King may have been, the fact is that the outcome would be my victory. This isn't a match, it's a bout. Now, it doesn't matter if the 8th Battle King did his best or not. True, that's a valid point. So it's better to stop this shameful scene now. As the 8th Battle King said, you're acting like the sister goddess of battle, 10th Battle King. There's no hierarchy among brothers. You can't order us or force us. It means only the sister goddess of battle can do that. The Tribe of Legends split between those who nodded in agreement with Jin's opinion and those who remained silent. Jean decided to become the antagonist who would incite their fights. In the end, he would have to win and be recognized as the antagonist. In my opinion, it seems like you're convinced that you're stronger than the 8th Battle King. If not, you couldn't humiliate him like this in front of all the brothers. Ko's behavior turned even fiercer. Is that so? What an interesting story. Does that mean you're now pressuring me in the same context? Is it because you're sure you're stronger than me, Brother Jean? At that, Jean smiled. Exactly. 10th Battle King, you won't be able to defeat me. Chapter 617. Ko remained silent, gazing at Jean with cold eyes for a while. When it's our turn to fight as brothers, I'll give you a lesson and carve it into your bones. You call us brothers with that bloodlust in your eyes. Looking back, it seems you didn't like me from the start, Brother 10th Battle King. Brother Jean, what nonsense is this? You're going too far. How can you speak to the Brother 10th Battle King like that? Some members of the tribe of legends, who were watching, were startled and shouted. Even Garmund opened his eyes wide in surprise. Do you think I'm wrong, brothers? When the goddess of battle sister handed me over to Sigmund, I don't remember the Brother 10th Battle King congratulating me. Furthermore, now he dares to mock my victory in front of everyone. There were some who didn't congratulate Jean at that moment, but he deliberately pointed at Ko. That's because the Brother 10th Battle King was angry with the Brother 8th Battle King. If the Brother 10th Battle King was truly only angry with the Brother 8th Battle King, he shouldn't have spoken about changing my diapers. The words clearly reveal how the Brother 10th Battle King truly felt about me. Furthermore, the Brother 12th Battle King fought with all his might. But why does the Brother 10th Battle King speak as if I couldn't defeat him? The legends couldn't immediately refute Jin's words. Jean continued to speak skillfully, preventing his brothers from intervening. Furthermore, why do you think the reason the Brother 10th Battle King caused a disturbance a while ago has nothing to do with my honor? Why do you think that? The Brother 10th Battle King assumed that the 8th Battle King had lost to me deliberately, so he expressed his anger. But what did he say right after? Jean looked around once. Are you really a Battle King of the great tribe of legends? That's how it was. If it had been the Brother 10th Battle King, he would have said something different. To fight like this is an insult to Brother Jean. Shouldn't it be a priority to take care of brothers who have never participated in the great tournament, rather than the honor of the Battle Kings? Silence hung in the air. Although Jean deliberately made his words more provocative, he was not wrong. To drive the wedge further, Jean looked back into Ko's eyes. Brother 10th Battle King, I want to say this one last time. Brothers do not tarnish the honor of the great tribe of legends. A while ago, you insulted 8th Battle King and me based on mere speculation, and assaulted a brother. It was far from brotherly behavior. It's disappointing. Brother Jean, stop now. Both Brother 8th Battle King and Brother 10th Battle King have made mistakes. But isn't it too much to assume that Brother 10th Battle King disliked you from the start? Jean nodded at Baltarok's words. I too have only speculated on the emotions of the Brother 10th Battle King, as did the first Brother Battle King. And I have never been wrong. See you in our battle, Brother 10th Battle King. As Jean turned around and left the main hall, Tantel hurried to chase after him. Brother Jean, what are you up to? Have you already forgotten everything I told you? I did it on purpose. What? It was necessary to stimulate the fighting spirit of the brothers. Seeing how 8th Battle King lost to me, it seemed something like this was necessary sooner or later. Huh? Tell me more. All right, but I'll only tell you. Promise it on the honor of the goddess of battle sister and all the brothers. After that day, the atmosphere of La Ferosa changed. First of all, the betting with Jewel Wine stopped. The betting with Jewel Wine was for everyone's entertainment, where practically no one was a victim. Whether someone won or lost, in the end, everyone shared the Jewel Wine used in the bets, laughing and chatting together. Everyone tried to cheer up the atmosphere. Such entertainment was only possible when Jean arrived and made time flow in La Ferosa. With the disappearance of betting with Jewel Wine, the laughter of the legends preparing for the Great Battle Kings tournament also faded away. Although they fought fiercely against each other until just before killing the opponent, the Great Battle Kings tournament fundamentally pursued a friendly competition. Now, the atmosphere was different. Like before the peaceful era of the goddess of battle Vaughn, invisible factions had emerged. The faction that recognized Jean as the successor of the god of battle, and the faction that thought it wasn't enough. The former adopted the stance that they should unconditionally support Jean as a brother, while the latter argued that the situation had changed, and strict scrutiny was necessary. I don't know if we have to stay locked up, but if we can go out, the competition for the successor of the goddess of battle sister should be clear. That's right, that's also good for Brother Jean. If the successor of the god of battle is not someone everyone can recognize, our tribe will end up weakening. Then we won't be able to go out and support Brother Gene properly. Brothers, you're talking nonsense. Brother Gene is chosen directly by the goddess of battle sister. Are you doubting the foresight of the goddess of battle sister? No. At that time, we didn't have hope of going out to the human world. The goddess of battle sister had no choice but to choose Brother Gene. Nonsense. If that's not the case, why did the goddess of battle sister leave when the brother 10th Battle King and the 8th Battle King fought? It must be because it's not right to forcibly push Brother Gene like the 8th Battle King. It might have seemed odd if the goddess of battle sister had stepped forward. That's an insult to the goddess of battle sister. Furthermore, since when has the Great Battle Kings tournament become a competition to determine the successor of the goddess of battle sister? It has always been implicitly like that. The final winner of the Great Battle Kings tournament would usually become the next god of battle. Damn it, brothers. To me, it just seems like a meaningless fight. Is this all we can do to appreciate each other? Are you going to test Brother Gene, who has already been designated as the successor? It's shameful to see brothers fighting and arguing only for that reason. In the end, the arm bends inwards. Surely, there will be brothers who consider Brother Gene as an obstacle. Ingrates. Ignorance. Brother Shaku, don't say that. No one thinks like that. That's something I don't know. To be honest, I think the Brother 10th Battle King sees Brother Gene that way. Am I the only one who saw the Brother 10th Battle King laugh as if it were ridiculous when Brother Gene lost his 2 battles in a row this time? 2 consecutive defeats. Gene was defeated by Palem in the 12th battle and by Dalper in the 17th. Unlike when Gene defeated Teto and Garmond, this time he suffered a devastating defeat. Furthermore, the 3rd Battle King and the 6th Battle King were also quite clumsy when facing Brother Gene. They didn't finish him off in one go even when they had the advantage. If they really care about Brother Gene, could that have happened? Besides, those two are very close to the Brother 10th Battle King. We, the legends, are all close, and don't make baseless speculations. Even if they intentionally made Brother Gene suffer, it was probably to enlighten him as a Battle King. And, whatever the reason, Brother Gene was defeated. It means he is even further from qualifying as the successor of the goddess of battle. Have you said enough, Brother Mukha? It happens that we are included in today's preliminary battles. Let's settle it there. Will the winner's opinion be considered correct? Heh, is that how it's going to be? I have no intention of stepping back. Don't regret it. Day after day, conflicts among tribe members deepened. It was hard to believe that just a while ago they lived together so peacefully and idealistically. Those who tried to remain as neutral as possible felt like they were standing on thin ice every day. It hadn't collapsed yet, but at any moment, given the chance, everyone could explode, and it wouldn't be surprising. Oh my, I thought there wouldn't be such childish conflicts in our era. Shouldn't we all be ashamed in front of our deceased brothers? How can this happen? Beliz, who watched them from afar, touched her forehead. She was the one who had welcomed and appreciated Gene the most from the beginning, but now she worried about maintaining neutrality as the conflict escalated. Doesn't the goddess of battle sister say anything else, Brother 5th Battle King? Beliz asked Boris, who was sitting beside her. Boris shrugged and shook his head. Is it too unpleasant to watch, or do they have something in mind? Outside of the grand tournament, everyone seems to be playing. This is madness. If Brother Gene ends up like this with Brother Ko, it seems a tragedy is going to happen. The 22nd match, the battle between Gene and Ko, was just around the corner. Gene was still recovering from the wounds suffered in the previous defeat, while Ko, having participated in more battles, was already in top form. I don't think the Brother 10th Battle King has any intention of being gentle with him. He harbored resentment. The conflict was the fuel, and the match between the two was the spark. All tribe members predicted Ko's overwhelming victory, and since then, the divisions between factions had deepened even further. Someone had to step back and stop this conflict, but Gene and Ko seemed far from intending to apologize to each other. Ha! It's impossible for the Brother 10th Battle King to kill Brother Gene, right? Surely he wouldn't do such a crazy thing. He's just angry. What's wrong? 7th Sister Battle King. Can't you trust the brother 10th Battle King? There's no reason for brothers to kill each other. Damn it, I don't know. The way the brother 10th Battle King behaved that day was like seeing his madness in its day. When KO went crazy. Bellas and Boras clearly remembered what KO was like during that time. At that time, KO was always ready to cross the line. Everyone worried, and at the same time anticipated. Without resolving anything, time came to the day of the battle between Jean and KO. Above the main hall, all tribe members gathered, watching Jean and KO with suspense. Vaughn, as always, had a calm face that did not betray her emotions. Finally, we meet face to face, brother 10th Battle King. In response to Jin's words, KO nodded. KO only responded with a cold, monotone voice. If you feel like you're going to die, scream for mercy. Otherwise, there might be an incident. Chapter 6:18. Why do you openly declare that you will kill? It seems you could do it. It wasn't a bluff. KO truly had that kind of look. To the point that Jean trembled even if he deliberately made it sarcastic to anger Jean more. Jean smiled outwardly, but his mouth was dry. I can't even play the villain. This one's scary. Jean came to La Ferosa to purify the chaos, regained all his strength, and was even more enlightened thanks to the god of battle fusion. Jean never thought he would be so deeply and strongly pressured by KO's fighting spirit. Jean knew beforehand that KO is one of the highest-level battle kings of the tribe. Even when the opening ceremony was held with the god of battle fusion, all the battle kings fought with KO's support. KO attended to everyone with a single bow, and his arrows were the most elusive and threatening attacks even in the state of battle god fusion. The 22nd battle begins. As Vaughn's words ended, a storm of lightning energy gathered around KO's great bow, the Godslayer. Energy also accumulated in Sigmund, but Jean was slightly slower than KO. The difference was enough that it could only be recognized by those who were at least at the level of the battle kings. The moment the sword and arrow collided, ordinary warriors perceived that both had attacked at the same time. It was heavy. The feeling was completely different from Teto, Garmund, Palem, and Dalper, whom Jean had competed with before. Especially in the previous two battles, although Jean lost, he thought the outcome might have been different if he had used the Sword of the Reign of the King of Legends to the limit. This time, Jean was sure from the first strike. At this moment, there was no way to defeat KO in a normal battle. If I keep training, there might be a chance. At the current rate of growth, it won't take long. The sense of the god of battle fusion was growing in Jean rapidly day by day. Bang! A resounding impact shook his body each time he stopped the arrows flying in a series of shots. As if there was no need to check his opponent's movements, KO pushed Jean to the limit from the start. Jean could barely keep up. To the eyes of ordinary warriors, it seemed like a close fight, but the Battle Kings already judged that KO had won the match. No wonder. Even ordinary warriors, who thought both were fighting on equal terms, believed the outcome of the 22nd battle was decided. It's only a matter of time. At this rate, Brother Jean will soon tire. I hope the Brother 10th Battle King doesn't hurt Brother Jean too much. Those who held that Jean as the successor had to undergo another test with other Battle Kings, and those who saw him as a confirmed successor shared the same concern. When KO said, "An accident could happen," Jean wasn't the only one who heard it. "Didn't you say you could definitely defeat me? It's disappointing. Why don't you shoot another arrow while you have time to talk? I'm still holding." Cut. The arrow broke, and a bolt of lightning pierced Jin's left arm. The shrapnel deeply embedded, almost touching the bone, was not a coincidence but KO's intention. It wasn't that Jean broke the arrow, but it was scattered arrows, a Battle King technique. Unlike the explosive-type bullets from the mana cannon, all dozens of fragments from KO's scattered arrows moved according to his will. In the opening ceremony, Jean did not experience KO's scattered arrows. At that time, to pierce through Jin's lightning energy, enhanced by the god of battle fusion, it was necessary to concentrate the destructive power at one point to the limit. So he didn't use the skill. Also, during the 3 victories, he did not reveal it to the other brothers, so it was a completely unexpected attack for Jean. A shrapnel embedded in his left arm came loose, causing severe bleeding. In the second round, Jean had no choice but to take another hit in the wounded area. This is no joke. To change the situation, a significant technique was needed. However, KO didn't give Jean even the slightest time. He had fought countless opponents, but it seemed like KO was the first one who didn't even give him a chance to catch his breath. He couldn't close the distance. KO leaped like the wind, shooting arrows from all directions. It seemed like not a single person, but about 10 archers were indiscriminately firing. Compared to this, Julian's Harmilla lightning is cute. Rather, it seemed like an archer with the divine power of the storm god. Although Jean barely managed to defend himself, every time a vulnerability appeared, scattered arrows burst out, preventing him from moving away from his current position. Jean changed his sword. Ultimate Shadow Sword Technique? Now that I think about it, you believe in that, Brother Jean. Yes, that sword is a bit dangerous. Saying so, KO immediately increased his firepower even more. Jin's Ultimate Shadow Sword Technique, which even blocked Lingling's senses, wasn't unleashed. It was because the Shadow Force curtain he was trying to color the main hall with was being shattered by KO's lightning. It wasn't entirely ineffective. The bow's accuracy decreased due to the obstruction of vision, and a considerable amount of shadow energy was wasted in expelling the shadow energy. Brother Jean, you know very well that stalling for time like this is pointless. Every time Jean thought KO would stop at this point, the firepower of the Godslayer increased. In the end, Jean couldn't fully use the Ultimate Shadow Sword Technique and had to substitute the Shadow Sword Technique for the Magic Sword Technique. Even that wasn't perfect. In a state where his entire body trembled from the impact like a ship caught in a storm, he couldn't properly execute any technique. He couldn't even borrow Tessa's most crucial power. Even so, the flames displayed tremendous power. He set fire to the arrow, pushed the lightning energy and scattered it, and even attacked KO. The opponent that crossed Jin's mind at that moment was Hito, the guardian of the White Knight Tower. The fire that unfolded unstably had as much destructive power as the moment it struck Hito in the Soda Desert. And, just like Hito at that time, KO showed his strength to easily shake off the blue flames. If Tessa's power had been added and fully utilized, not even KO could have dealt with him so easily. However, in combat, assumptions were meaningless. That's why KO didn't feel very threatened by Jin's flames. Swak dash. A dark sword energy emerged amidst the blue flames. KO elegantly dodged the sword energy and began closing the distance with Jean. It wasn't because he underestimated Jean to the point of giving up the advantage of mastering the distance. Rather, it was a deliberate choice to end Jean more decisively. The closer he got, the more the destructive power of the Godslayer multiplied. The lightning energy enveloping the entire main hall converged towards KO as he drew closer. It was like tightening the grip on him. Although the area invaded by KO's lightning energy was shrinking, Jean couldn't extend his energy there. A more powerful force continued to suppress Jean. The curtain of shadow energy, which had spread out in front of him, had been pierced. With the last line of defense crumbling, Jean had to endure the Godslayer's lightning energy, which had begun to seep into him. Maintaining an absurdly advantageous state while eroding the opponent's territory with lightning energy is one of the characteristics of the Sword of the Reign of the King of Legends. KO's technique resembled that. Swoosh dash, tack. While frantically blocking the arrows, the scattered arrows exploded again. With the third burst, Jean felt his vision darken for a moment. The eyes. 2 fragments had accurately pierced Jin's 2 eyes. Thanks to the runes and Myalta's protective shield, he wasn't actually stabbed, but his head rang to the point of feeling dizzy. You won't be able to stop the next one, will you? Will it be okay? Brother Jean, it seems better to shout for mercy. 10 steps, the distance between Jean and KO narrowed to that point. As KO said, the rune of Myalta was completely torn on the eye side. A chill ran down Jin's spine, and cold sweat broke out. The moment his eyes were damaged, they could never be restored, not even with Boraz's healing power. It was impossible to know exactly how the battle between them was unfolding due to the lightning energy and the shadow curtain. Even if Jean lost both eyes, It would only be an accident. Jin's heart raced. If I retreat, I'll never achieve my goal. Great Battle Kings Tournament. A fight to determine the successor of the God of Battle. In that fight, all tribe members risked their lives. Losing his eyes was nothing compared to that. It was even more so when he thought of it as a price to unite his brothers by becoming a villain. You're weak. If it were me, I'd take your eyes out right away without warning, Ko. I also believe that. Ko released the bowstring he had drawn. Then, along with the lightning energy hanging from the bow, all the arrows that were arranged like pillars everywhere rained down on Jin. Even if they were covered by lightning energy and shadow energy, it was a move big enough for all the brothers outside to notice. The legends gasped. In the end, Brother 10th Battle King. For God's sake, you didn't need to go that far. You could have incapacitated him for the fight. This isn't right. Sister Goddess of Battle, we have to intervene. It's too late. As the Brother 10th Battle King said, Brother Jin should have declared surrender before it came to this. We could have stepped forward and prevented it. A dash. Jin let out a scream with a broken voice. Finally, the accident happened. After about 10 seconds, the immense forces that had shaken the entire temple were calming down as if it were all a lie. After everything cleared, what the legends saw was Jin with arrows stuck all over his body and blood flowing from his entire face, and Ko looking at him while breathing heavily. The legends couldn't blame Ko. The Great Battle Kings Tournament was originally such a fight, and he only did what he could. The constant use of Battle King techniques was a huge burden for Ko as well. He barely held his trembling legs and aimed his Godslayer at the fallen Jin. Whoa! If Vaughn didn't announce the victory and he released the arrow, Jin would surely die. Vaughn watched him for a while. The 20-second match. But just as Vaughn was about to announce the end of the match, suddenly, Jin, who had fallen, stood up and stabbed Bradamanti into Ko's chest, with his sword in his mouth. What the hell is this? Brother Jin. Jin moved incredibly fast like an arrow, but it wasn't at a speed Ko couldn't react to. But Ko couldn't stop the Bradamanti that pierced his chest. To avoid being stabbed, he had no choice but to release the bowstring that he had aimed at Jin's head. You bastard! Although Ko was stabbed in the chest, he didn't release the bowstring. On the other hand, Jin turned his head and even rotated the sword in his chest as if he really was going to kill Ko. I told you, Ko, you'll never defeat me. Never. Then, as Bradamanti's energy exploded in his chest, the arrow grazed Jin's cheek and split the sky. Ko coughed up blood and collapsed, and Jin trembled for a few seconds, staring at him before losing consciousness. Chapter 619. The two men, who had an astounding 20-second bout, were unconscious for over a week. During that time, the Goddess of Battle Vaughn halted the progress of the bouts. Originally, even if an accident occurred, the Great Battle Kings Tournament always continued immediately, but this time was different. This was because Jin was the tribe's only hope to escape the dead world. His death meant halting the tribe's history once again. Brother 5th Battle King. What happened? Are our brothers all right? Brothers? Hey, Brother 8th Battle King. Haven't you seen what Jin did to Brother 10th Battle King after the bout? Brother 10th Battle King was the first to treat Brother Jin as an enemy. Not that Brother Jin did a good job either, but Brother 10th Battle King shouldn't have gotten that far in the first place. So stabbing the unsuspecting brother in the chest and even bursting sword energy on him? This isn't an accident. It's an intentional assassination attempt. Brothers, calm down. Listen to what Brother 5th Battle King has to say. Boris had a haggard face from the intensive surgery that lasted over a week. Both are all right. They won't suffer any disabilities and their lives aren't in danger. But they need extreme rest, so don't meet with them until I say it's okay. The legends nodded. Boris, foreseeing any contingencies, had separated the hospital rooms of both individuals. The legends took their positions in front of the rooms of the individuals they supported. Even before the 20-second bout, the legends were divided and engaged in daily skirmishes. However, now there was an overwhelming majority of KO supporters compared to before, when the faction was split in half. It had to be this way. It's true that Ko initially acted as if he couldn't recognize Jean, but he didn't cross the line. Jean, on the other hand, clearly crossed those lines. Furthermore, strictly speaking, Ko followed the traditions and principles of the Great Battle Kings tournament. Until Jin's provocation, Ko hadn't directly attacked Jean. The Battle Kings in front of Jin's hospital room were Limpa, Bellas, and Garmand. Since there were fewer than 10 ordinary warriors, including Shaku, it clearly showed how most of the legends felt. However, even among those who were on Jin's side, there wasn't an unconditional stance of support towards him. They also believed that Jean had committed a grave sin. Still, it was only to point out that Jean hadn't been expelled from the position called Brotherhood. The rest of the brothers were mostly in favor of Jean being expelled, and not just expelled, but it should be accompanied by a strong punishment. "Damn it, how did we get to this?" said Garmand, touching his forehead. He felt the most responsible for this incident. He believed that if he had fought properly, the situation wouldn't have escalated to this extent. "Stop blaming yourself, Brother Garmand. It's not your fault. Yes, let's think about how to resolve this issue. Does our brothers' unity end here? Like this, we're no different from the stupid other races we used to hate in the past. Those who wanted to expel Jean and those who didn't. In reality, they had no choice. The absolute decision-making power of the tribe rests solely with the goddess of battle, Vaughn. Vaughn only halted the great tournament kings, but even then, she didn't express her intention otherwise. Not only that, but she completely isolated herself with Lingling from the rest of the world. The sister goddess of battle should say something at a time like this. This is the first time sister goddess of battle has stayed quiet at a time like this. What the hell is she thinking? As concern and anger among the legends grew, Jean and Ko woke up just 2 days later. Upon waking up, Jean immediately expressed his thoughts to the brothers who rushed to him after receiving permission from Boraz. "Unless the sister goddess of battle disciplines me personally, I will continue to participate in the great tournament of Battle Kings as planned. If necessary, I will continue to adhere to the same methods as to defeat Brother Ko." It was unexpected for the brothers who had been waiting. Naturally, they expected Jean to reflect on his excessive actions and apologize to the enraged legends. "Brother Jean, are you insane? Are you going to do it again?" Jean nodded silently in response to Bellas's furious voice. "Yes, the Great Battle Kings tournament isn't fundamentally a simple sparring match, but a battle, Sister 7th Battle King. And I will demonstrate my will and my qualifications in this battle. Is it all right to do such things just for victory? Do you really believe that trampling on the faith and affection of brothers and winning is really a fair competition? I can do even more than that. If you think it's unfair, the brothers fighting against me can do the same." Unlike Brother Jean, Brother 10th Battle King suffered such grave injuries that he can no longer continue in the Great Battle Kings tournament. "Brother Jean, you burst your sword energy into his chest. It will take him at least a year to recover. He's currently at a point where he can't even eat alone. Can't you feel anything? I almost lost both my eyes to Brother 10th Battle King. In the end, my entire head was about to disappear. But that didn't happen. Why? It's because Brother 10th Battle King wasn't able to shoot you in the end. That's right. If they really couldn't finish me off, I don't know. Anyway, Brother Ko lost, and I will win in the next bout. You can't kill me because we're brothers? From the start, participating in a battle where accidents and deaths are inevitable. Adopting such a withdrawn mentality is the problem." "What? And do you think the reason Brother 10th Battle King didn't shoot the arrow at me was because he really cared about me? It's probably because if it's not me, the hope for brothers to get out disappears." Bellas raised her arm as if to slap Jean. Then, she lowered her trembling arm again. "I hope the brothers treat me as they should. If they truly accept me as a brother, they shouldn't have denied me being Sigmund's successor just because another possibility has arisen now. Not all the brothers did that, but many did. Even the goddess of battle sister didn't contain the atmosphere. And what's the result? The brothers are already divided, and most of them support Brother Ko. In a way, it's not even a division. Now that the opportunity to deny my succession, which they didn't like from the beginning, has come, unity is closer. In the face of Jin's malicious words, all the brothers beside him bit their lips, to the point of wondering if he's the same Jin they knew. I guess we've misunderstood Brother Jin. I've never really felt included in the words, our tribe. Now even you, in the end, will turn around and stay on the other side. After all, the arm will end up bending inward. As Bellas turned around and left the hospital room, the ordinary warrior followed her. Rinpa and Garmin stayed behind for a while and looked at Jin. Brother Jin, why are you doing this? Brother Jin, you're not like this. It started because of me, but now you're definitely wrong. Brother 10th Battle King might have been a bit rough, but do you really think the reason he couldn't shoot you was because he wanted to get out? Please leave. Jin closed his eyes, and the two remained silent for a while. Brother Jin, just remember this. If you continue like this, all the brothers might truly drift away. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in KO's hospital room was a bit heavier. Everyone was silently repressing their anger. If the lightning had exploded in a slightly more dangerous position, KO's light heart would have shattered and he would be almost crippled. He should be banished. You're right. I don't even want to call him brother anymore. He's crossed the line. This is clearly an attempted murder against a brother. If we banish him, we can't leave forever, but we can't just stand still. KO silently swallowed the porridge that Battle King Baba gave him to eat. Sister Goddess of Battle just gave the order, shouted Mukha, who had just entered the hospital room. What did she say? She said that the Great Battle Kings tournament will continue as soon as Brother Jin fully recovers. Sighs sprouted from all around. Of course, they wanted punishment for Jin, but it wasn't easy to accept since it was announced that the Great Battle Kings tournament would continue. The fact that the Great Battle Kings tournament was continuing again meant that KO would be excluded. KO was now in a state where he could no longer participate in the Great Battle Kings tournament. This makes it clear. Sister Goddess of Battle has no intention of directly disciplining Brother Jin. However, the tribe members didn't think it was favoritism from Vaughn. Rather, they considered it giving them a choice about what to do with Jin, or they thought it was giving Jin another chance to see how he behaves in the next match and how he treats his brothers. Sister Goddess of Battle must have the same thought. Even if it means we can't leave, we can't just get over it. Yes, if her intention were never to punish Jin, she would have given orders never to retaliate. Brother Jin is not qualified to inherit the God of Battle. Not only did he lack strength, but he even tried to kill 10th brother using the fact that we couldn't leave if Brother Jin died. When it's my turn, I'll take 10th brother's place. When several tribe members revealed their intentions to kill, Baba stopped the porridge. By the way, in the end, Brother Jin didn't kill 10th brother. Everyone, let's calm down a bit. 9th Sister Battle King. Do you mean we need to think more? When 8th brother did something stupid, the reason 10th brother got so angry was because of 9th Sister Battle King. Don't tell me you didn't know. 9th Battle King Baba. Until their destruction, most tribe members thought that the person who would succeed Vaughn would ultimately be Baba. The Battle Kings, including KO, had been fighting to defeat her all their lives. Baba was the final victor in the last Great Battle Kings tournament before the destruction. Haha, I know, but do you really want to kill Brother Jin? It might be a mistake. Besides, even though everyone says it, they don't have the confidence to banish or kill Brother Jin. Baba! Finally, KO raised his head with a hoarse voice and everyone looked at him. KO opened his eyes and said, If Jin makes another mistake, then end him yourself. Chapter 620. Are you really going to keep doing this? Why did Brother Jin get so angry? Did it bother you so much that we said a new test is necessary when you've already become the successor of the Sister Goddess of Battle? Enough to stab your brothers. Brother Jin might understand this if he really thinks about the situation of other brothers. Moreover, not all brothers claimed that he should be tested again. Even the 10th Battle King brother just wanted a fair Great Battle Kings tournament. It's not about taking away what Brother Jean has. Say something. As Baba said, although the members of the tribe of legends were so angry, they still didn't have the courage to kill or banish Jean. In Kao's hospital room, they talked about it as if they were about to get rid of Jean, but what they most desired was a conversation with him. The tribe's law that brothers don't calculate favors between them still applied to Jean. But Jean was only making things worse. The legends were willing to make amends if Jean sincerely apologized, but he just coldly dismissed all the brothers who visited him. As time passed, the legends' disappointment grew. Seeing Jean becoming increasingly cold, selfish, and ruthless, they began to wonder if the person they knew actually existed. Everything he has shown us so far has been false. How can a person change so much in an instant? We were willing to give everything. Would we have ignored it if he had honestly told us not to test his ability anymore since he has already inherited Sigmund? Not only the brother 10th Battle King, but all the brothers would have accepted it. He seems convinced that we're causing a commotion just to take away what's his. Was it so unbearable to give equal opportunities to other brothers? If it's not me, he can't even go out, and now he dares to verify my qualifications? He has that kind of attitude. He can never become a true legend. In the end, he was just a human being, always greedy. Sadness turned into anger, and anger soon turned into a feeling close to hatred. The depth of the gap that separated them was a problem that no one would have imagined would occur at one point. 77 individuals, adding Jean makes 78, and including Lingling makes 79. The city, once filled with golden glory, always emitted a lively and bright atmosphere, even with these few numbers, when Jean arrived. However, now there was a tense and uneasy atmosphere. Sigh. Jean spent time in empty houses on the outskirts of La Ferosa, far from the goddess of battle's room. Even during the grand tournament, if it wasn't his match, he didn't visit the main hall. I've felt it since the last time, but it's something I really can't do. Jean didn't feel comfortable. When he provoked Kao, when he maliciously stabbed him, and even now when he continued to provoke all his brothers. Of course, his heart was bitter and sore, like filled with acid. But as the situation grew more serious, he became more certain that he had to go through this process at least once. I must not leave the feeling that my inheritance of Sigmund was a reward obtained too easily. Hierarchy. Except for the goddess of battle, all tribe members were equal. However, looking back, Jean had always held an exceptional position. Although he wasn't a brother, he mastered the Sword of Legends, and after becoming a brother, he succeeded Sigmund immediately. That's why, even when lining up, Jin's position is next to Vaughn's, and in the opening combat, he fought alongside all the legends. All this happened in the few years they spent together. They never fought a life-or-death battle behind others' backs, never defended a territory, never conquered, never massacred enemies, never joined a war where fate was at stake. Jean always came here to receive. However, as Tantel said, the legends were also living beings, so they had very ordinary emotions. Even after the tribe accepted Jean as their brother, even after Jean was ranked alongside Vaughn, they always considered Jean someone they had to take care of. They were trapped in a dead world, and their time with Jean was very short, so they couldn't treat him with total equality. In other words, the legends only saw Jean as a younger brother. Jean, as a second-rank brother, believed that he shouldn't be a subject to be taken care of but rather a target of struggle. Beyond equal treatment, beyond equality, he believed he should be a subject to transcend. If he had shown transcendent power like Vaughn, if there had been a time when he could do so, there would have been no need for conflicts like now. The same applied even when the tribe was still confined in La Ferosa. There would have been no problem as long as he had been treated like a beloved younger brother without conflicts. But to fight with his brothers from outside and to come to control them as a leader, a real fight was necessary. Not a play that resembled reality. After this fight, it was crucial to confirm what would remain. It's not that Jean wasn't worried at all. There was no guarantee that the results obtained after the fight would be favorable. I have to clear my mind. Until the Great Battle Kings tournament ends, I just have to focus on training, meditation and retrospection. After waking up, Jin continued to grow at all times except in battles. The wounds he obtained in the battle with KO stimulated the feeling of the god of battle fusion. And Jin's training progressed to a higher level than before. The optimal paths for stabbing and slashing, the unwavering composure maintained in any situation, the feeling of avoiding death, and landscapes that seemed to be seen only by those who had transcended, and more. In other words, the martial arts world that only transcendent beings could comprehend. In his mind, the image of that world was constantly drawn without rest. Jin absorbed everything with astonishing speed, of course, thanks to the sensation of Vaughn he experienced through fusion. But that was not all. The senses of the sister goddess of battle are those of a person who has been strong since birth. Just like my father. Jin's own mastery added to that sensation. Jin Runcandle's unique mastery, which he obtained through the abyss of the bottom and long despair, as well as through death, further enriched the transcendent world. As a result, in the 31st combat, which took place 3 days later, Jin directly defeated Nada, the 11th Battle King. Nada was very resentful, and a fierce battle ensued. But in the end, Jin emerged as the victor. Didn't he use all his strength when he fought the 10th Battle King? No, he's getting stronger. In such a short time. Jin must have known exactly how fast he was growing. That's why he crossed the line and became so arrogant. He doesn't think everything is due to the privileges obtained through the god of battle fusion. In the 38th combat, he lost to Belaz. However, Belaz's right arm was cut off and he was in danger of death. And as Jin had warned him beforehand, he didn't stop there. Even once victory or defeat was decided, he stabbed him in the neck again, just as he did with KO. The tribe members were paying more attention to Jin than before, so fortunately, the sword didn't cut Belaz's neck or any unfortunate incident occurred where Belaz counterattacked and killed Jin. The legends shot lightning bolts and separated the two. Jin's limbs twisted in the process, but Belaz came out unscathed. Now, not even the legends had reservations about aggressively repressing Jin. The anger towards Jin intensified even more. Crazy bastard, you really want to kill your brothers again. The sister 7th Battle King defended you until this morning. Now, the sister 7th Battle King must have changed her mind. Again, after Jin's recovery, he defeated Garmund in the 46th combat, and in the 50th and 54th, he was defeated by Baltarok and Lamora, respectively. Every time he was defeated, he rushed like a demon to the end, only to be subdued. But now no one was surprised by that spectacle. Jin's body deteriorated slowly. Even with Runcandle's blessed body, he couldn't keep resisting battles against the other Battle Kings, which he repeated after recovering. The other legends also accumulated wounds, but they fought a completely different battle from Jin's. The battles of the other legends were not filled with the bloodlust and hatred that Jin's battles were. Those dark energies were consuming Jin like a parasite. I can't fight. In the 60th combat, Rinpa, facing Jin, said that as soon as the battle began. She didn't dare to fight against a defeated Jin. The other legends respected her decision. Rinpa was the one who prevented her brothers from challenging the gods until the end, and it was she who stopped talking with a feeling of guilt for her failure. Anyway, the next battle is with the sister 9th Battle King. No matter how fast he gets stronger, he can never win against the sister 9th Battle King. He has already been defeated by the other Battle Kings. In the end, Sister Baba will put an end to him. Sister Baba, who has endured Jin's rampage until now, is now trembling. Baba, like Belaz, was also a person who didn't give up on Jin until the end. Even now, she was willing to forgive Jin if he reached out to her. She hoped that Jin wouldn't delve further into darkness and reach a point of no return. "Won't you fight me?" In response to Jin's icy voice, Rinpa nodded and turned away. "Yes. I warn you, Rinpa, if you take one more step, I'll cut you right where you stand. Don't avoid the fight." Rinpa continued to advance, undeterred, and Jin wielded the shadow blade towards her back. The cut was shallow because Rinpa reacted, but a long scar remained. Red blood welled up. The bloodstain, as if the red lines had been sliced, seemed to symbolize the end of the relationship between the tribe of legends and Jean. Sister Fourth Battle King. That crazy bastard! Vaughn raised his hand to stop the legends, who were about to rush forward. He hasn't broken the rules yet. If Brother Jean kills Sister Fourth Battle King, I will personally take care of it. Will you continue, Sister Fourth Battle King? I resign. Tension hung in the air. Jean glanced at Rinpa. As Vaughn declared the end of the battle, she turned away indifferently, and just as Jean was about to leave the hall, Baba suddenly stepped forward to the center of the room and spoke. Sister Goddess of Battle. Speak, Sister Ninth Battle King. Sister Goddess of Battle, you referred to Jean as a brother a moment ago, but we can no longer consider him as such. What do you mean? Baba glanced at Jin's retreating figure and spoke. Therefore, may I kill Jean Runcandle in the next battle?